Welcome all to PCM Podcast, a series of informative podcasts with experts in their fields exploring a wide range of topics in payments. The theme for today's session is embedded finance, supporting SMBs through the cost of living crisis. Accelerated by the ongoing cost of living and lingering effects of the pandemic, embedded B2B lending has gained momentum over the past few years, partly because of limited access to traditional bank lenders, but also due to the rise of fintechs who have adopted a tech-first approach to business financing. As about 95% of businesses globally are actually SMBs, and they account for over 60% of the employment, it is no surprise that this has been an increasing focus for platforms to tackle this funding gap for SMBs. A recent research conducted by the Boston Consulting Group, where our guest speaker also featured in, he's getting famous, found that the majority of the SMBs are interested in financial services embedded within a platform. And as such, we've seen embedded financing expected to exceed $7 trillion by 2026. And this is in the US alone. We've seen a large number of platforms actually recently announced publicly their move into SMB embedded lending to tackle the cash flow challenges put on small businesses and give them access to that critical working capital they need to run the businesses. Recently, a large travel platform announced that they're exploring to offer working capital to hotel. A large global marketplace announced that they would be offering MCA to the sellers. A large BNPL player is offering cash advances to their businesses. A large US logistics company is offering financing to their business customers. And so you see a range of platforms actually going into that direction. To explore this in today's podcast, I would like to introduce our expert speaker, Jacob Olins, VP, Head of Financial Services at Epos Now. We'll talk about how enterprise platforms are supporting their customers with flexible, affordable financing solutions for their business during the ongoing cost of living crisis in the US. As Head of Financial Services at Epos Now, Jacob is responsible for building and scaling lending, banking, and payment solutions for more than 55,000 retail, restaurant, and service businesses powered by the global SMB vertical software leader. Epos Now's capital solution, powered by YouLend, has launched in the US recently and will provide SMBs with up to $1 million in funding to drive business growth, marketing investment, and cash flow management. Jacob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Luke. It's great to be here. Really excited to talk to you guys today and excited to share some of what we're doing and the success that we see providing financing services to SMBs across the globe.
Thank you very much, and very excited to have you. So, following the intro, let's dig right into it. Curious to hear, what is the importance of SMB clients to Epos Now, and how are the merchants impacted by the cost of living crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. So our lifeblood is SMB clients. Epos Now does, as you said, 55,000 locations across the globe. The bulk of our customers are in the UK, the US, and Australia, but a bunch of other countries as well. And our average customer does under $1 million in revenue a year. So our customers are quintessential SMB clients. And what we hear from them all the time in light of the current cost of living crisis is really they've got pressures on two sides. They've got a customer, their end user, a consumer who purchase from them, and we support many different verticals. So we support restaurants, we support hotels, we support retailers, grocery stores, a variety of different types of retail and services businesses. And so regardless of what industry this end SMB is servicing, they've got a consumer who's feeling their dollar doesn't go as far. It's a highly inflationary environment, and so they're seeing less demand. And then on the other side, they're seeing their suppliers and they're feeling the inflation hit themselves. So whether that's electricity prices, whether that's mortgages, or whether that's just inventory that they use to run their business, they get a lot of insight into those increasing costs through our software, through our inventory management capabilities. But basically, they feel those pressures on multiple sides, and they're looking for ways to be able to grow, thrive, support their customer without putting additional strain on their customers, through this crisis, so that they can continue to operate and grow their business and do so profitably.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you offer Epos Now Capital. Why would you say is that a good solution for SMBs to overcome these challenges?
I think Epos Now Capital has been one of the primary tools, and we're seeing our capital program has never done better. And I think a big driver of that is, in light of rising costs, in light of your supply chain increasing costs on you, and then going into, like, for especially our retail customers, the busiest season of the year. What happens if you're funding all of your inventory with cash flow, and all of a sudden that cash flow doesn't buy as much inventory, but you're going into this busy season where you need to have as much inventory as possible? The worst possible outcome would be, you're just not able to afford to have the stock in store that you'd be able to sell. And so, now your profitability on the products that you have is less, but you're not able to buy as many products as you want to be able to sell. And so, that's one of the probably core use cases of Epos Now Capital, and why our demand for that capital is really so strong right now, is these customers see it. Hey, this is a way that I can bring some additional cash into my business, that I can use it to buy inventory, even in light of rising inventory prices. And yeah, I'm going to, adjust my margin and my prices accordingly. But that'll basically keep me afloat and keep me thriving through the holidays. In absence of a capital program, or, trying to get funding through a traditional capital provider, if the customer even has the traditional credit score to qualify for that, they would be talking about, months to be able to get those loans. They would have to go through all sorts of hurdles. The searching for the right kind of loan could be really difficult for them. And so, we're finding a tremendous amount of adoption to our capital product, and a really happy customer who sees this as sort of light at the end of the tunnel during an otherwise pretty difficult time.
Yeah, I can imagine it's pretty helpful for businesses, especially for a lot of the hospitality. This is probably the golden quarter, I guess they all name it. So can you share some of the successes you've seen with Epos Now Capital, and how does it help the merchants in the hospitality and retail sector specifically? Yeah,
certainly. We've been live with Epos Now Capital in the UK since the beginning of 2022. More recently, we launched in the US. Both of these capital programs are doing extremely well. We see a tremendous amount of initial conversion with our customers. And then we see about 80% of customers taking capital, taking follow-on capital. So, if you've opted in for a capital program, you're basically about 80% likely to renew that capital at some point. And that might not be, as soon as you've sort of finished using or paying back your initial advance, but it might be, several months later when a new opportunity or crisis sort of emerges. And so some of the things that our customers are using these capital programs for, and some of the I think successes is, like, as I said, inventory is probably like the number one use case. So customers basically saying, hey, I can either afford to buy additional stock, and therefore, that'll enable me to make more sales. Our customers also use the capital programs to sort of split it out. Like, you've basically got two primary use cases for capital generally. One of them is going to be like an opportunity. So inventory is a great example of, I'm using this because I've got an opportunity. I can buy more stock and then I can sell more stock. The other is a crisis. So some of our customers, might have, especially in the hospitality industry, like a critical piece of equipment go out. And so in a restaurant, that might be like a fryolator or an oven or a stove or something like that. It might be, for a cafe, the espresso machine, right? If that goes out, like, you need to replace that thing immediately. If you don't have the cash, and some of these are like very expensive pieces of equipment, a new espresso machine can be, thousands and thousands of pounds. A new oven or commercial grade refrigeration unit can be thousands of pounds. And if you're, an SMB business operating on relatively thin margins, like, it might be very straining to try to come up with the money to be able to pay for that. And if you've got to go through a traditional, bank provider to come up with the proceeds that you need to afford an expense like that, it could take, the amount of time could actually be like fundamentally damaging to your business. If it takes you 2 months to get a loan for, a new espresso machine, and your business is selling espresso, you might be out of business. So, those are some of the real successes, especially on like the crisis side. On the opportunity side, as I said, inventory purchases, which just enables these customers to make more sales. And then a really interesting example that we saw relatively recently was a customer had a next door neighbor who was selling their property, and the customer basically was able to use the Epos Now capital loan as an ability to expand their business. And so they used the capital to purchase real estate next door and they were able to provision that capital much faster than they would have been able to, get a commercial mortgage. Whether or not they would have qualified for that, who knows? But it certainly would have taken a much longer time. And then they're able to use that capital to expand their business, like in a really great time, right before a holiday season. And so, we're seeing all sorts of kinds of creative ways that customers are using this capital, and really excited by the opportunities that it gives them to grow.
No, I think it's just amazing that you're doing that also, because the businesses, they will have the opportunity to jump into these opportunities, right? Like rather than indeed what you said, going to the bank first, trying to apply, that could take days, weeks, if not months. So that very nice story. And so what main opportunities do you see in the US market specifically? So you're launched in the UK already, but in the US as well. And how do you think that would scale in the months ahead there in the US?
Sure. Yeah, so we've been live in the US for a few months. Already we can tell that our initial adoption is at a higher rate than in the UK. And so I think, we see this as a really underserved market in the US, even more so than in the UK. I think there's a couple of contributors to that. Like historically, cash advance, point of sale provided, or vertical software platform provided capital programs. I think originated in the US, like the first ones were in the US, but overall the market, I would say, is far less penetrated in the US than it is in the UK. So I think, many, many more small businesses are underserved and not able to get the capital that they need in the US compared to the UK, where, maybe there's just more proliferation of software companies offering capital programs to their clients. So, the adoption rates are really strong. The fact that we're able to talk to our customers who we're selling to upfront and say, hey, we have these offerings available to you, are really astounding. And so overall, it's really powerful. Another really interesting thing I think to note is Bank of International Settlements came out with a report in September. And they had basically been, over the past 5 years, looking at alternative lender providers and comparing, what's the performance when you compare loans provided by alternative providers to traditional providers using FICO scores and other traditional metrics. And it was I think what a lot of us who are in this business and who talk to these customers and who see the results have known and been saying for a long time, but it was pretty definitive. Hey, the performance of the loans provided by these platforms, they're higher performing, and they're also reaching customers that just would basically be considered subprime by traditional metrics. Whether that's because of the location of the business is an area that's sort of deemed, hey, this is not a great area for business, and so one of the terms that I've heard used for this is there's a ton of hidden prime out there. There's a ton of high quality merchants out there who by any traditional metric aren't going to get a loan, are going to have to search far and wide to find a bank that would be willing to talk to them, going to take months and months, and then even after doing all that work they might not get a loan. So how many merchants are first of all not even going to go through that process because it's so hard, but there is just a huge amount of these merchants that have great businesses that are increasing sales, that are really creative, that have very loyal lucrative client bases. That their paybacks are always on time. They're eager for more capital because they're just enterprising entrepreneurs who are good at growing their business. And these kinds of programs, these POS-enabled capital programs, we're certainly feeling like we're able to distribute a lot of those types of loans and advances to those kinds of hidden prime customers. And we can tell, they're hidden prime because of the data, because we see their sales, we see what they sell, we see how frequently they sell. And just really good opportunity for us, and a pleasure to be able to provide that kind of support.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great example also of financial inclusion, right? Like reaching the businesses who are traditionally, as you said, are excluded from accessing, financing, and that's great that they're now able to do so, and then grow and become that again what we discussed earlier, right? Like they're the backbone of the economy, and employing over 60%. So it's great that that on a piece of financial inclusion that you're supporting that. So it's very interesting to hear, Jacob, and especially because it's a very relevant topic for us all. I think just being mindful of the time. So really appreciated you taking the time also. I think it feels like a real win-win situation going on. Your merchants or businesses are finally getting the ability to access these funds quickly from what you mentioned, and you will, I guess, strengthen the relationship with these merchants, and also benefiting of them growing, which is often the case after them taking out financing, and especially given the increasingly deteriorating macro environment. I guess we see banks already tightening their credit to SMEs. So there's a real need, but equally presents a great opportunity as well. So just to finish up, yeah, truly exciting and very nice to hear how the Epos Now Capital solution is going on. And I look forward to follow very closely what you're doing on Epos Now Capital, but also in general. I'm sure there's some very exciting stuff happening there in the pipeline. Just on a final, any closing thoughts from your side?
I mean, thank you very much for having me. It's certainly a passion of mine and a passion of us at Epos Now to be able to service and support Main Street and tech enable Main Street, and now financially enable all of the SMB clients that we've got across the board. Some of the things that really help us, I think, serve this market is just these guys are in our tool every day. They use our tool, our platform, the point of sale to manage their inventory, to manage their staff. They understand, profitability of their business and how to grow through our platform, and being able to offer them within this, give them confidence. Hey, they're qualified for a cash advance. Sort of pre-qualify them and let them know, hey, based on the sales and the activity that you're doing, here's what we think you'd probably qualify it for as far as a loan. I mean, that's just really opportunity opening for this whole cadre of businesses that we service, and so yeah, we just see a lot of opportunity in the industry over the next several years.
No, very, very nice. Thank you very much, Jacob, for your time, and thanks all for joining this podcast. Thanks all for your time.